Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hey, this is Cassandra from the HigherEdSocial Facebook group. Just sorry about the delay getting started. We had a couple of technical difficulties, but it looks like we've got 23 people in the room. If you're here, can you post up? Let us know if you're seeing us okay, if you're hearing us okay, that the sound's good. If you guys could, in the chat box on the right-hand side, let us know how things are going. Introduce yourself. Let us know what campus you're from. If you're a social media manager for a department, for a flagship account, include that in your welcome. I'm really excited for this webinar today because it's something I don't know a lot about either as well. The Facebook pixel and kind of this mystery that surrounds how do I use it and how can I use it for my campus more importantly. So super excited to have Cassandra Corrado here from her campus, and so I'm going to turn it over to her. She's going to give you a little bit of background about her and her expertise in the subject, and then we'll get started. So take it away, Cassandra.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thanks, everyone. You're so speedy in that chat, sending where you are. This is so amazing to see people responding to things so quickly in a webinar. So my name is Cassandra. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the Director of Marketing at Presence. I'm actually going to start screen sharing with you all now, because otherwise I'm just going to be repeating this exact same information to you again in about 12 seconds. So let's go over here. And can everybody see this okay? All right, perfect. So this is me. You can see me here, and feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. That's my profile photo. And like I said, I'm the Director of Marketing at Presence. I wanted to give you some context for the types of work that I do and the experience that I have, because I think we all have completely different backgrounds. We can see that just with what's coming up in the chat right now. And so at Presence, we get about 45,000 page views a month. That's total, not uniques. And I'm also a social media strategy consultant. I work mostly with nonprofits, and they might be nonprofits or small businesses that get only 1,000 or 5,000 page views a month. But previously, I ran ads and did social media engagement for Upworthy, which is 12 million monthly unique page views. And all of those roles involve me using the Facebook pixel. So I've been longtime friends with the Facebook pixel and sometimes enemies with the Facebook pixel. So I definitely understand some of the struggles that we feel with it. And that's kind of why we're all here, because this started out of a conversation in the HigherEdSocial Facebook group about like how we can even track these things, how we can optimize our ad sets more. And if you're working in higher ed, you probably, for most schools, don't have a huge ad budget to be working with. So you really want to optimize it the best you can. And the Facebook pixel is a great way to do that. But Facebook is constantly changing what they're doing. And so when they're always changing their algorithms, or they're changing their rules, or they're integrating Power Editor and their normal ads manager all into one place, you can kind of feel like you have absolutely no idea what you're doing while you're trying to keep up with all of these things. And Cassandra, I can't see any questions on the screen right now because of the screen share. So if anything wildly urgent comes up, could you just tell me?
Yeah, it looks like the slides aren't coming through for some reason. They were just saying. So I'm going to try to upload it on the back side. And I don't know why it's not allowing me.
Interesting.
Yeah, let's see. Boop-boopity-boo. Come on, Demio.
They flickered on for a second, so they're working if I'm not in presentation mode. That is alarming. Let's try a thing right now. Thanks, everybody, for your patience. I super appreciate it. So if this is up like this, can you all see things? I do not have two screens. That would be the more ideal situation if I currently did.
It popped up. I am seeing it now. Yep.
But you're only seeing it in this like funny window where you can also see.
Mm-hmm. Like looks like a share doc.
Yeah. Don't know what to do about that, unfortunately, because when I go to presentation mode is when it seems to cause a problem. Like you can't see it anymore, right?
Let's see. And it goes black. Okay. Let me convert the PowerPoint to a PDF and see if I can upload it that way.
Perfect.
Can you, while we're waiting on this PowerPoint to come on, can you tell us a little bit about Presence? Because it has kind of an amazing backstory, and everybody there is like doing amazing things. So for those people who don't necessarily know what Presence is and what the company does, can you give us a little bit of a background?
Yeah, definitely. So Presence is a student engagement platform. We work with institutions of higher education all across the United States to basically help students get involved and improve their student learning experience. So that means that we do a lot of different things. At our most basic core, we do event check-ins. So for people who work in student affairs, who want to check people into events, we use different types of technology, including card swipe and digital ID, and manual entry for schools who want manual entry, to basically get students into events. But on top of that, we have these really fantastic, really powerful data tools that let you integrate with your student information system to really be able to see detailed information about who's attending your events. Everything from race, gender, age, the year that they are in school. You could have their commuter status, what residence hall they lived in, if they're receiving need-based financial aid, basically anything you could want to put in. And then we connect all of that to student learning outcomes to basically say, like, hey, the things you do on campus matter, and they matter for reasons other than fun. So that's the, I think, 30-second version of what we do. But we're based in St. Petersburg, Florida. There's a big thunderstorm coming in right now, so you all might start to hear that at some point. So that's a little bit about who we are. And as you can kind of tell from my intro, I have really varied experience. I work, for a software company now, but I've also worked for small nonprofits, and I've worked for big media companies. So I've been all over the place when it comes to ad budgets. I've been all over the place when it comes to organic reach. So I'm really interested in learning more about all of you today and what your struggles are with Facebook advertising and how you want to learn. Look, the gradient's there. That's amazing. Yeah. Awesome. So this is the presentation, everybody. Thank you. I'm probably way happier than I should be that this is actually working.
It's going to come as a PDF, though, unfortunately. So we're going to lose all the happy GIFs.
That's okay. That's fine. All right. So thank you, everybody, for your confirmations. This is all working for you. So I'm going to go ahead and jump over. So if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, that's my profile photo. This is what I look like. I'm right in front of you right now, so you can see that. And I've already covered all of this stuff, but this is the first GIF that you missed. Basically, when we are trying to keep up to date with all of the incredible changes that are happening across Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram and Twitter and Snapchat and whatever other social media platforms you use for your institutions, it can feel a little bit like you have no idea what you're doing. And the social media landscape is so rapidly changing, especially in the information age that we're in now, where there are increasing concerns about privacy, and people are starting to take their data protection much more seriously. So we're seeing a lot of really big changes. But the Facebook Pixel is one thing that has not changed, despite many of those things. In fact, it's while a lot of privacy tools are becoming more restrictive, the Facebook Pixel tool rather, is becoming more all-encompassing. You can use it in more ways than you could before. So we're going to talk about today what the Pixel actually is, because there was a lot of confusion about that in the original post in the group. We're going to talk about some key questions you should be asking yourself before you get started with doing any advertising on Facebook, but definitely before you install your Pixel. We'll go over setup really briefly, and hopefully that works, because that involves some screen sharing. And then we're going to talk about how you can build your audiences, what types of audiences you might want to build. And then we're going to go over one really helpful low maintenance advertising strategy that you can do for pretty insignificant amounts of money. So if you have a $100 a month advertising budget, or if you have a $10,000 a month advertising budget, you're going to be able to find something that works for you. And I can see your chat now, so if you have any questions, please feel free to interrupt me and ask. So if you ask Facebook what the Facebook Pixel is, this is what they tell you. And that's basically not anything that's any different from what we might have guessed. But basically, it's a tool that we can use to track who is coming to our website and how they're engaging with it. It makes us be able to spend our ad budgets way more efficiently, which is something in higher ed we always want to be doing because every single dollar we spend is critical. So the Facebook pixel is the Facebook specific name for what's literally just a tracking cookie that you place on your website. So just like you might use something for HubSpot or for Salesforce, or you might have a Google Ads integration, you could also do this with Twitter or LinkedIn. It's basically just that cookie that lets you understand who is coming to your website and at what point they're engaging and what point they're not. They don't have to fill out a form in order for this cookie to track them. So it's a cookie, and just like the rest of cookies, it basically passively tracks all user behavior on the website. This is really helpful for colleges and universities because a lot of times we're relying on either purchase lists to give us the advertising information that we might be looking for, or we're relying on prospective students to fill out a form. And that form might be send me more information about this college. It might be them starting to apply. It is going to be different for every single institution. But tracking cookies, just like Facebook Pixel, don't require any actual input on the user's part, which means that you can start getting your ads in front of people before they even necessarily know if they want more information about your school. It's a great way to spread that information and basically get your institution at the front of people's minds. And the most, I think, appealing benefit for a lot of people is that it expands your audience while also reducing your cost per click and your cost per impressions. So that's a really exciting thing for a lot of us, especially when we're on a much tighter advertising budget. But before you get started, there are some key questions that you have to ask yourself. These are questions you should ask yourself before any time you start advertising in any way, not just on Facebook, but regardless of the social platform you're using, or if you're doing mailing advertising. These are key questions, but they're especially important when you're doing something as sophisticated as working with Facebook advertising. Because it's such a powerful tool, it means that you have the possibility to really customize things exactly how you want to and to do real-time experimenting. That also comes with a lot of responsibility and a lot of self-control a lot of the time. So here are some questions you should ask yourself. What are we looking to measure? First and foremost, you need to know that. Otherwise, why are we actually doing anything anyway? So some considerations for you are things like impressions versus clicks versus landing page views, which is a newer metric within Facebook advertising, or maybe form submissions, which is something you can do natively in Facebook, or it can be something that you integrate in your website. And there are also specific target regions that you could think about measuring. So for those of you who are regionally serving institutions, or for those of you whose institutions maybe have very specific target areas, you might want to think about how your reach or your engagement is changing over a certain period of time. And I'm really curious to know, for those of you who are currently advertising on Facebook, do you use things like location-specific targeting? Do you just target within the United States or within Canada? Or do you go further specifically, more specific than that? Let me know in the chat because I'm really curious to hear that. So Nick, yes, you're using location-specific targeting. Awesome. Location-specific targeting is a really powerful tool that you can use, and you can use it on top of the data you get from the Facebook pixel. And we're going to get into that a little bit more in about 15 minutes. So I'm really excited to see all of you using location-specific targeting. Holly, awesome answer. It depends on what the goal of the campaign is for you. And you only recruit from a 200 to 30-mile radius. So that's really important. That means that Facebook's advertising tools that let you get really hyper-specific with that targeting is incredibly helpful. All right, awesome. The second thing you want to think about is who you actually want to be targeting, who you want to be engaging. For institutions who might have really specific target demographics, for community colleges, this might be working parents who want to go back to school. For other institutions, you might be, again, recruiting people specifically in a 200 and 300-mile radius. So you can get really, really specific with not only your pixel, but pairing it with those custom lookalike audiences. And we're going to get to that again in a few minutes, but these are just questions to have in the front of your mind. You can use a customer file. So these are these things that a lot of us rely on to send particularly paper mailings, but you can also use it on Facebook to match people who are similar to people who either already go to your institution, people who are likely to be accepted to your institution, or a bunch of other characteristics. And you want to consider what pages or actions are critical, because our websites are huge. I know when I'm working on a sitemap for our website, it gets incredibly detailed and there's so much going on at any given moment that for every single campaign, we have to make sure that we get every single relevant page into our map. We want to make sure that it's all getting properly advertised. So one of the tools I really like to use is Airtable. It's functionally a database tool, but it looks like a spreadsheet, or it can look like a Kanban board. It can also look like a calendar, depending on what type of view you want. But Airtables are basically a really easy way to keep track of everything that you need to know and how you want to prioritize it, which is what this ranking by priority level is really helpful for. So make an Airtable or make a spreadsheet of the most important pages or all of the pages on your website and figure out what priority level they are for your social advertising. How much of an effect do you think they're going to have? Is there a high conversion rate for one type of page versus another type of page? Those are all things you want to consider. And ranking them basically lets you know how much money you should be putting behind ad sets that might be going to each of those individual pages. And then the final thing that you want to consider is what timeframes are important. So for those of us in higher education, we know we have a very specific timeline, whether it's those of us who work in student affairs roles, and so we're only thinking during peak times of the academic year, or those of us who might be working in admissions and recruitment and very specifically trying to get students in by particular deadlines, whether it's for campus tours or submitting an application or submitting financial aid or letting them know about events coming up in their area. One helpful thing you can do is either make a calendar or make a Gantt chart of important dates and the time periods that lead up to them. So basically, once you get to that point in your chart, you say, hey, I need to start thinking about this. This ad needs to start running at this point. That's one easy way to keep track of everything that's going on. So this is when we're getting into setting up your pixel, which for a lot of us is why we actually signed up for this webinar to begin with, because setting up the Facebook pixel your first time around, to put it in plain language, can be a pain in the ass. And it's really difficult for a lot of people. And that's because for most of us, we aren't also in charge of our websites. We might be in charge of posting on social or moderating social or exclusively in charge of ads. And we have no access to the back end of our website, which you need to be able to actually set up your pixel. So the heads up, before you get into this section on your own, you may need the help of your website manager or a developer for this phase. So reach out to them in advance, because it's going to make your experience a lot more stress-free, and it'll make their experience a lot more stress-free if they don't feel rushed for it. So to install the pixel, I'm going to, first of all, assume that all of you have business manager accounts for your institution, and that if you don't have a business manager account, you should go and you should probably make one today. Business manager accounts take away the problem that so many people bring up in this group and in other student affairs groups that I'm in week over week, which is, how do we deal with this person who still has ownership over this particular account? They don't work here anymore, they're not a student anymore. Business manager accounts take away all of that worry. They basically designate one central email or one central person in charge of the account. So if you don't have a business manager account, I definitely recommend you go do it. It is super easy peasy, lemon squeezy to get started. If you just Google like make a Facebook business manager account, all you have to do is one very simple step. From Business Manager, you're going to go to your Ads Manager account, which is nested into Business Manager. But if you don't have Business Manager, you do still have Ads Manager. It's one of those fun things that Facebook makes really complicated. And from the stacked menu up on the left, this is a screenshot of it here, and I'll go to a live demo of this on my side in a minute. You're going to go to All Tools and then over to Pixels. At that point, you're going to be prompted to set up the pixel, and the easiest thing for you to do is follow your on-screen instructions. And yes, Sarah, you can integrate an existing ad manager into a new business manager. This is something that I've definitely had to do before for organizations that have been running ads through people's personal accounts. And so there were 4 or 5 different people who all had ad history underneath their accounts. And basically what you're going to do is export a file, close out that ad account, and then upload that file into your new centralized ads account. There are a lot of really helpful documentation resources for this within Facebook's business tools. Nick, yeah, this is something that is incredibly common with institutions because we don't do things like set up business manager accounts. And this is why I think it's critical for every single business, every single university to have a business manager account. Because when you leave your job, if all of the ads you've been running have been under your personal ad account, your institution loses all of that incredibly valuable data. We never want to lose data. It's like our lifeblood at this point. So just centralize it, put it into Business Manager. Business Manager is free. You do not have to do anything to set up a Business Manager account other than just give Facebook some really quick information. So we are going to go, and I'm going to share my screen with you. If anybody can't see anything, again, please let me know, but we're just going to be going into my personal Ads Manager account. And that means, Cassandra, we're going to have to pop back over to the demo after a minute. So you'll have to kick me out of screen sharing. Okay, so this is my Ads Manager account. There, as you can see, because of today, there are many different tabs open. We will get into all of them. And this is my personal Ads Manager account. So there's not going to be a lot here. It's pretty empty. We'll look at another more robust account in a little bit. But you'll see in this top left-hand corner, this is that 3 stack that I was telling you about. I go down here to the sneaky all tools thing. Every once in a while, this menu is a little bit punky. It will just kind of collapse on you. So if you can't get it to stick, just keep going back. I highly recommend doing this off desktop. I do not recommend using the Ads Manager mobile app. It's garbage, so don't do it. It does restrict your editing abilities. But underneath Events Manager, you can just go down and click on Pixels. It's going to reload the exact same page we were just on. All right, and you can see here, I actually have a fake pixel that was set up on this account that I never did anything with. But normally there would be just a setup pixel button here, and I could keep doing that if I wanted to. But for this purpose, we're going to go to Add Data Source, and then, that's not letting me click it. Why not? Okay, well, let's click here. So there are a few different options that you have for actually installing the pixel on your website. If somehow your institution uses Google Tag Manager or something like Shopify for your website, congratulations. This is going to be way easier than it is for everybody else who has a completely self-hosted website. So you can give yourself a pat on the back because it's going to be a much smoother time. If you use something like WordPress, there is an extension that you can install to just be able to manage your tags, but it's not going to be consistent for everybody. So just make sure you check with whoever is in charge of your website to see what they need done. They've got a really handy button here that's email instructions to a developer that will basically tell them whatever you need. But we're going to assume that you need to manually install the code yourself. In the header code for your website, it's really simple. You're going to look for these tags that are brackets with the word head in them. And once you see that, you're basically just going to copy this code. And you might want to do this, but you might not. So that's up to you. Basically, this is going to allow you to have more specific information about your customers. We're going to pretend that I have already copy and pasted this onto my website because that's not something that I can show you right now, but we've put it into the header code. And then this test traffic, once it's ready to go, which happens within half an hour, you'll see it turn green and it will tell you that there's been activity in the past 30 minutes. Once you get to that point, you're going to add the events that you want to track. Basically, events are any type of action that's happened on your website. So You might have something like an offline event, which might be an attendee list of maybe an informational session, or if you had people sign in when you were tabling at a college fair, that would be a place where you could add an offline event. But for these other website events, you are just gonna select things that are normal to you. You'll notice that most of these are optimized for e-commerce. So you might not necessarily have something that's an add to cart function or an add to wish list or an add payment info, but you might have a complete registration. You might have somebody who counts as a lead, and you might have somebody who, of course, this is one that we're all going to be interested in, is viewing content. There are a lot of different things that you can do here, but basically these are very specific codes that you're going to have to add onto the base of each of those pages. So if you have a main blog page, or if you have a prospective students page and you want that to be a specific event, your developer is going to need to add this not only to your home page, but also to every single one of those specific pages. So this is where this can get a little bit more complex. It's going to show you the instructions for all of these. So as you pop these out, make sure that you have actually finished every single step. Otherwise, it can get a little bit messy. And again, there's this helpful email instructions button if you are not the person who wants to do it. I don't personally recommend installing the Pixel helper. Ironically, it is not that helpful. And in a world where I had actually set up this pixel for this, you would see that there would start to be recent activity after the past 20 minutes. It's going to basically catch every single person who is coming to the website. Were there any points of clarification or confusion that people had there before I pop over to the next section? I know installation is the really complex part of this, and the most simple piece of advice I can give you is make really good friends with whoever is in charge of your website.
I was just going to say that maybe the request should accompany like some cookies or something to the IT folks, because I can imagine that it's probably going to need some sort of, you know, higher level authority person to go in and be able to access all of that.
Yeah, definitely. Depending on the type of institution, and every school is so different. So that's the really difficult thing about this, is that there's no unique or no one process, right? Like we are all unique. And so some institutions might say like, yeah, whatever, put the pixel on the website, I don't care. Other institutions are going to be really concerned about things like privacy, and say like, well, what does it mean if we install this cookie on the website? What do we have to do? What messaging do we have to put out? This is a great example of GDPR at work and making sure that you're actually fulfilling the GDPR requirements. Most of you are going to be recruiting students who are from Europe, where GDPR would apply. So just be mindful of that. Grace, your question is, can you have your pixel installed on many websites? You can. I wouldn't recommend it. You can, underneath one Ads Manager account, make up to 10 pixels. So I'd recommend making a unique pixel that's named for each of those specific websites so that you can track all of that traffic to get in separate categorized buckets. So if you have like a graduate school, for example, that has a separate website with a completely separate URL, it's not like fakeuniversity.edu/insert graduate school name here. If that's the case, you know, there's very simple segmentation you can do for it. But if it's like fake graduate school name at fakeuniversityname.edu, all one really long word, that's going to be a different story. And I'd recommend making a separate pixel for that. Sarah, if you're using the Google Tag Manager, how does it change how we load in the Facebook pixel? You're basically going to do the exact same process where you create the pixel, and that's the button we didn't push because we were already editing it. But you're going to take the number that it gives you, and you're just going to put it into Tag Manager. And same process, after about 30 minutes, you should start to see data firing into Facebook. And depending on the types of tools you use, if you use HubSpot or Salesforce to do any type of marketing tracking, you should start to see it show up there as well. Holly, it sees it all as one website. Yes, Sarah, definitely check in to see what is covered under your Salesforce account, because I know for HubSpot, you do have to add on a separate system, so just make sure that it's all covered. But for you, it would usually just be under the advertising option, and then you can create a specific pixel for Salesforce, or you can just use the Facebook one itself. I know a lot of times those marketing systems really want you to like make your own. That's like Facebook pixel by Salesforce, but you don't have to do that. It is just a marketing trick, like all of us are doing on a pretty regular basis. So, all right. I'm gonna pop over to the next part of our PowerPoint. So Cassandra, if you could start sharing that again. Actually, I might be able to do that.
We're up there.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
also collecting all these questions and putting them in the Facebook group for the event. All of the answers in there. So for people that are following along or that are going to watch it later on a better time, you know, our friends on the other side of the world that are sleeping, we're going to have them all archived there as well.
Awesome. Great. So we've just finished all of this. There is going to be a resource slide at the end of it. So if I'm speaking too quickly for you, or if my screen is moving too quickly for you, there is a resource slide at the end that has links to step-by-step instructions of all of these things. So I promise I'm not going to leave you after this webinar to just go do everything all on your own, like you were never even here. I know I talk quickly. I apologize. I'm trying to slow it down. The next thing that you want to do is create your audiences, right? So like there's absolutely no point in having a pixel if you're not going to utilize it. Then you're just collecting data that's sitting in a proverbial dustbin, and that's not what we want to be doing, right? We want to actively be using our data. So within Facebook, you can create your audiences, and this is going to be the same thing from that All Tools drop-down menu. You're going to go to Audiences, and from there, you have a couple of different options. One of them is Custom Audience, one of them is Lookalike Audience, and then the third is Saved Audiences, which are those very specific interest and location and age-based targeting groups that you may be using if you're just doing a regular old boosted post. And I'm going to go ahead and start demoing this as well. So I apologize, Cassandra, I'm kicking you off of this again. But, oops. All right. So this is for presence. This is our audiences. So again, all tools. We're going to go over to this assets column and then audiences. There are a lot of things you can use here, but audiences is one of the most helpful things you can use. It's such a time saver. I can't even emphasize it enough. At Presence, we don't do a ton of advertising on Facebook. It's not, I think, our most effective venue, but for a lot of nonprofits I work with, and certainly at Upworthy, Facebook was an absolutely critical tool. But because we're not marketing directly to students, it's not something that we use a lot. So you're going to see a lot of these things show up a little bit emptier as we go through here. But if we go down to create audience, again, there's custom, there's lookalike, and there's saved audience. And the first thing you're going to want to do is create a custom audience. We're not going to go through saved audience today because that's something that is pretty simple to learn on your own and doesn't have a ton to do with the pixel. So you're going, if you want to use your pixel, you're going to click on website traffic, which is a list of people who has visited your website or taken specific actions using the Facebook pixel. And as this loads, you're going to get a few different options. So you might want to use the any function, or you might want to use all. That's if you have a hyper-specific audience. For those of you who get tons and tons of traffic on your websites per month, you know, we're talking in the millions of page views, having those hyper-specific audiences is really going to be key to your success. Because as we know on Facebook, if your audience is too broad or it's too narrow, you're going to get not the greatest amount of like your ads are going to cost too much, basically. So you want to make sure you're at a happy medium in between, and that's going to mean that you have to narrow these down a little bit more than you might for a smaller institution. So using presence as pixel, say I want to create an audience that has, let's do the most simple one. We'll do everyone who's visited the website in the past 15 days. And we're going to name this Higher Ed Social Media Test 15. You'll just click Create Audience. Make sure you give your audience name a name that's specific enough that you'll actually be able to understand it when you're just clicking it from Power Editor. So when you get there, it will take a couple of minutes for Facebook to match you, but at that phase, you can then create a lookalike audience, which we'll get to in a minute. Lookalike audiences, if you've never used one before, are incredibly powerful tools. But say you just want a very specific audience. You want to retarget people who have already been to your website, not necessarily completely new people. You're going to create an ad using this audience. At this point, your audience is saved, and you'll be able to return to it at any point when you create any other ad. Facebook Power Editor is generally pretty slow, so I apologize for the delay. At this point, I'm going to be assuming that we have all used Ads Manager before, so this is going to be a pretty familiar view for us. But in the event you haven't, when you first create a campaign, which is the first step to creating an ad, there are going to be some considerations that Facebook requires you to fill out. For most people, those considerations most relevantly are going to be traffic, brand awareness, reach, conversions, and possibly messages for those of you who are experimenting with messages for admissions or whatever your jobs are. So for this example, we're going to go to traffic, which means we want to be driving people to actually come to our website. I'm going to name this campaign Higher Ed Social Media Traffic 1. And I'm not going to create a split test for this specific ad, mostly because I tend to do that on my own. And I'm not going to optimize the budget across ad sets, again, because I like to do that on my own because I am a micromanager. If you are not a micromanager, go ahead and fill that out. At this next point, you're going to name your ad set. And when you're naming your campaign, you want it to be basically the umbrella for what you're doing. So say you might have a campaign that is specific to a month. So maybe it's September recruitment could be your campaign. And then it's September recruitment traffic because that's your goal. Your ad set name would then describe the quality that is connected between all of the ads there. And this is where Facebook gets a little punky. So for our ad set name, we are going to do, I'm going to do Higher Ed Social Media again, just so I can easily delete these later. But I'm going to do my ad set name as Florida. And that's going to let me know that these are all ads that are going to go to Florida. I always want to be driving traffic to a website, but some of you might be interested in driving traffic to Messenger. I would imagine that very few of you would actually be using apps, but some of you may. Offers are things that are specific coupon codes. So unless you're doing e-commerce, they're not going to be the most useful, but they can be helpful for things like trying to get people to sign up for tickets for an event. The important part that we want to look at is this audience section. And you have two options, create new or use a saved audience. And for us, we're going to be using a saved audience because we have already created it. Or no, sorry. If you have an interest-based audience that you've already saved, you'll find that here. The difficult part of Facebook is that if you're using the pixel, you're going to want to go here. When you click into custom audiences, that's when you're going to find everything that's specific to your pixel. So you can see our audience here, that's Higher Ed Social Media, test 15. But I can also see a lookalike audience of people who have been to our website in the past 60 days. I can see an audience of people who have visited co-curricular pages. I can look at very specific groups that are here. The size is not available because it's unfortunately unmatched. And Facebook will tell you if it's not able to match. And then you can make these very specific by each group of days. So this is the 15-day one. So we want to target everybody who has visited your website in the past 15 days. And because I named this ad set Florida, I'm going to make sure that my location is as specific as Florida, which is going to reduce our reach. We're going to ignore this for now because this is all fake. If you want to restrict your ages, you can. I don't necessarily recommend it. Depending on the size of your institution and the students you serve, you'll know what the best advertising age is. And then if you also want to target people who are interested in different things, that might be sports, it might be certain types of outdoor activities, it might mean different disciplines of study, you can add all of those things as well into these demographics, interests, and behavior. So on top of what you're able to gather from your pixel, you can then make that even more specific and say, I also want to have people who match these things. Similarly, you can also exclude people who are interested in those things. And if you want to add people who are friends of people who like your page, or if you want to exclude people who like your page, or you just want to target people who do like your page, which I don't personally recommend doing for recruitment purposes, you can do that. I don't actually recommend using Facebook's automatic placements because you're going to know your audience best, and so you're going to know what has the best return. So you might want to say that, okay, you don't want to advertise in Marketplace. Maybe you don't feel like making content that's going to work best for stories, so you're going to get rid of Facebook stories, but maybe you do want to do Instagram stories. Basically decide for yourself which one of these things is going to work best. You can also set up completely different ad sets for all of these things. And then daily budget. So when you're doing retargeting to people on your website, I recommend starting with a pretty low budget. So something like $5 a day. And then after about a week, I recommend starting to bump your daily budget up by $1. This is basically going to help Facebook's algorithm not freak out when you start to do things to it. It will mean that it doesn't increase your bid by a ton every single day. Basically, you're being sneaky with Facebook. And again, you're optimizing for link clicks for this. When you first make an ad, I don't recommend that you set a bid cap. Just let Facebook optimize the way that it's going to. And after that first week, if you feel that the bid is too high, you can lower it little by little. I really recommend doing that like 10 cents at a time. Otherwise, Facebook has a tendency to throttle your reach. The delivery type is going to be completely dependent on you, as well as ad scheduling. So that'll be relevant to whatever you're doing. And at that point, we go into the ad creation mode. So I'm going to bump out of here and go back to audiences. I'm going to show you a couple of other things you can do with your pixel-specific audience before we get into this. The pixel is really great because it lets you customize every single audience you might want to have. So if it's really important for you to have people get a Facebook or Instagram ad, one day after they view your website, or 3 days after they view your website, or 2 months after they view your website, you can do all of those things. And you can have all of those ads running at the same time and talking to each other. So just like you did this 15-day audience, you would just go to create a custom audience, and then you would change 60 days, 90 days, 82 days, whatever you wanted. But for this purpose, we're now going to go to Lookalike Audiences. Lookalike Audiences are exactly what they sound like. You give them a source, which for us is going to be our presence pixel. And I might have clicked the wrong one because we have two, because HubSpot broke things. And you're going to click an event, or you can click things out of a menu of your personally saved events. You can do a specific country, just do United States or Canada, whatever country you're based in, or whatever country you're trying to target. And in general, I don't recommend going beyond this one threshold. What this means is that for your target countries, you're going to have anywhere from 1 to 10% of Facebook users in that country targeted who are the best match as far as their interests and what Facebook matches their themes on for this actual source. So say the pixel is people who have been on your website in the past 60 days. You want that audience size to then be 1% of a lookalike audience of Facebook users in the United States, because that's going to give you the most accurate lookalike audience. Lookalike audiences are great if, say, you have a list of people who have enrolled in your institution, or who have accepted offers to go to your institution, or who have been admitted. And maybe you want to target your ads to not necessarily those people, but the people who have similar interests, because maybe people who are like these people also want to attend your institution. It's basically a way for you to reach outside of what your typical group might be. And you would just go and click Create Audience here, and after 20 minutes, that would load. That was a lot of stuff that I just threw at you about creating audiences. So I want to give everybody some space to ask whatever questions you have about how you can create audiences or what the benefits are of different types of audience creation. So I'll wait a second for any of those messages to come in. And again, there will be more resources about this that will come out with the PowerPoint and afterwards.
So it sounds like you really kind of have to play around with audiences and get in there to see what even the options are.
Absolutely.
Because you're going to get in there and then realize, oh, wait, we can segment based on this, and that might change your ad strategy.
Exactly. Facebook is, in my personal opinion, like the most effective advertising tool in a lot of ways, and that's because you can get so hyper specific with those audiences. But the best way to learn about it really is trial by testing. So I recommend getting like $1 a day of budget for ad sets to just experiment with different groups of people. That might mean people who have been on your site in the past 15 days or the past 90 days, or maybe a combination audience where it's people in the past 90 days who are also interested in cats and the University of Alabama. Maybe that's a correlation that for some reason means that more students are going to apply. You really don't know. So I definitely recommend experimenting and give your ads a week to settle. I think a lot of us, when we do advertising, like we want to immediately see our results. And so when we do that, it means that we're just like constantly refreshing Business Manager to say, okay, I want to know what's happening right now. How many people have clicked on my ad? How many people have seen it? And when we do that, we're not giving ourselves really any grace, and we're not giving Facebook time to do its job. So start off with a low daily budget. I do, again, recommend doing a daily budget, not an overall budget. Overall budgets are generally not very helpful to a lot of us because Facebook gets to decide for themselves how much money they spend on what days, and that might not align with your personal strategies. So yeah, is anybody else currently using custom audiences? I know a lot of you said that you're targeting based on location. I'm assuming a lot of you are targeting based on interest, but do any of you currently have a Facebook pixel on your website that you're using? Or maybe it's there and you just haven't known what it does? All right, so Mary Jo said, we used a custom audience to target parents and prospective students for a big campus visit day and had to close signups. The event was full. That's really fantastic, Mary Jo. And that's one of the things that's super cool about doing Facebook advertising this way. It's a way to reach way more people than you ever thought. And advertising digitally often saves you money compared to doing things like sending out tons of mailers. We know that prospective college students are getting mailers all the time. I know when I was a prospective student, you know, over the course of 2 years, I had a stack that was like half my height. So when we're sending out that much mail to students, it's really overwhelming. But if we're meeting them where they are, which isn't necessarily Facebook, but certainly their parents are on Facebook, it might be Instagram, and it might mean that on stories, we can do ads through there and we can use the pixel for that. So it's a good way to get in front of people who might be oversaturated.
That's a really interesting one, Mary Jo, because I work with students helping them apply to colleges and trying to find those visit days. That information is often buried on a website somewhere. So that's an excellent use case to promote that for parents, to let them know, hey, we're going to have this event coming up. Here's an easy way to sign up so they're not having to go 5 or 6 clicks deep on your admissions website. That's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes things way easier, I think, when you can do that very specific sign-up strategy. And Facebook does give you the opportunity to do sign-ups directly within the platform. That's one of the ways you can use the lead ads that they offer. Steven says, I set up a pixel and I'm getting ready to launch my first ad with it. It's for our music program, so it's targeting for both admissions and performances. Is there an ideal number of days since they visited the website to target them? Steven, I'm going to ask you a clarifying question first. When you say it's targeting for both admissions and performances, do you mean performances as in selling tickets to a performance, or do you mean people who are interested in music performance? While I'm waiting for you to answer that, I'm going to look at Holly's message. Holly says, we primarily rely on email lists from our internal databases as our audience, but want to use the pixel for finding new audiences. That's a really good strategy, Holly. I think it's important for everybody to have like an octopus arm strategy when it comes to advertising, and that means that you might use a physical mailing, you might use emailing, you might use Facebook and its combination with Instagram, or you might use Twitter, or skywriting, whatever you want. But always more data is a great thing to have in the advertising world. And so Stephen, you said selling tickets as well as people who might be prospective students. Okay, so for those two things, I would actually say there are two different considerations. For selling tickets, I would definitely recommend that you advertise to people who have visited your website in the past 1 to 3 days. That's because if they visited your performance-specific website, so say you have a URL that's like, stevensuniversity.edu/performances. Again, it doesn't need to be as specific as that, but you can send ads out to specific URLs that way. Then you can say everyone who's visited this website in the past 3 days, reserve them this ad. And then if it's maybe people who have visited that site in the past 45 days, so maybe they've been to the last performance you had, we're going to serve them this ad as well. That way you can get people who may have started to think about buying tickets but left because they didn't have their credit card, or you could also get people who are previous attendees. You can also use the upload audiences function for that. And when it comes to prospective students, I say give them more time. Students are so inundated with information that it can be really frustrating and overwhelming to be like, I went on the school's website for 4.5 seconds and now I have 47 ads from them. In general, I don't recommend serving 47 ads all to one group of people, but I would definitely give them a little bit more of a breathing space. So 14 days is a good space for that, but do some experimentation with your own business manager account and see what works best. Whatever your cost per impressions or your cost per click, if it's the lowest, that's going to tell you that it's probably working the best for your purposes. Megan, we've used Facebook Pixel to target recent visitors to landing pages for online admissions. Our campaigns have not been very successful, but I also think we haven't experimented enough with the types of audiences we can create utilizing the Pixel. Definitely experiment. There's no harm that happens from creating more specific audiences from the Pixel. So you might want to save people who are last 15-day visitors, who maybe visited in the last 6 months. People who are looking at an online degree program are probably really busy at other parts in their lives. So signing up for something that day might not be something they're looking for, but maybe 3 months out, right? That might be something that lines up more with their own timelines. Erica's lookalike audiences have been a game changer. It lets the Facebook platform do the hard work, seriously, and takes the guessing game out of building your target audience. Absolutely. When I worked at Upworthy, lookalike audiences were one of the ways that we got our cost per click down to a fraction of a penny, which is amazing. Would it also depend on time of year? Absolutely, yes. It's going to depend on your admissions cycle. So if it was the start of the new year of performances, you'd refer it to a date that could include the previous year of performances. Yes, you could also do that, Sarah. So it's going to very specifically depend on your own calendar, which is why I recommend using a calendar or using a Gantt chart to keep those functions in mind. And we're coming right up on 3 p.m. Eastern, which was our original stop time. So if anybody has to stop, I totally understand. Y'all have lives. But again, a recording will be sent out of this. And I'm going to hop in to do the last couple of slides that we have, and then we'll start to wrap up.
Let's do it.
Alrighty, Rue. Yes, I want to share.
So for those that are doing advertisements, maybe they're, would you guys be interested if we did another webinar on how to design ads? Because Megan, like you said, a lot of the ads maybe not be successful. I've been saving ads as I see them in my feed, and most of them are not beautiful. They're not anything that I would want to click on myself. So maybe that could be a follow-up one. Awesome. I'm getting lots of yeses. All right, we will schedule that. So if anybody on here thinks that they're amazing at ads or has a lot of expertise, send them my way. We'll set something up. That'd be great.
Awesome. And Sarah, I definitely recommend learning ads. Even if it's not something that's part of your day-to-day job, I would say that when I was applying for future social media manager jobs, and certainly my role now as director, having really intensive ad experience is one of the things that really set me apart, because I had not only the social and the editorial experience, but also the experience doing large-scale ad campaigns. So there are a lot of free resources. They're linked at the end of this PowerPoint where you can start to learn more about that. And All right, so low maintenance ads. This is the last thing I am going to show you. There's also a resource for this at the end. Low maintenance ads basically mean that you don't have to do a ton of upkeep to them. So typically when you send an ad out into the world, you might want to be adjusting the bid every few days. You might want to, I know when I worked at Upworthy, I was 24/7, quite literally some days, monitoring all of those ads to make sure that they weren't overspending from where we wanted them to, and that they were being their most effective. Low maintenance ads basically say, like, I can set it and forget it. They are the crock pot of ads. So one thing you can do that's really helpful with your pixel is a retargeting campaign. And you can do that most effectively through the reach function. So this isn't going to mean that you are targeting people in your campaigns to actually click on those ads, but you're trying to just get the information in front of people. This is great for brand awareness, which means that if you have a big deadline coming up for admissions, or if there's, Stephen, like you mentioned, an event coming up that you want people to buy tickets for, you might retarget people within specific timeframes and let these ads passively run to those people. So I'm just going to show you this from here on the screen instead of taking you into the live demo of it, just to respect everybody's time as much as possible. When you go to create your ad, you're going to go into the campaign sharing. And when you create your campaign, instead of clicking link clicks or impressions or conversions, the objective you're going to select is reach. And when you select that, it will then bring you to this page. So say that the audience you want to use is people who have visited your website in the past 60 days. And I'm going to pause here for a second and say that if you're running these passive ad campaigns, you should make a separate campaign for every single time frame that you want. So you might want a 60-day ad campaign. You might want a 15-day ad campaign. You might want a 10-day. You might want 180 days, which is the maximum you can do on Facebook. But you want to make it really specific, and you want all of those things to be separate so you can measure the efficacy of the data. Then you want to do all of the location, age, gender, language, and interest-based targeting that you might want to use as well. And again, as a reminder, you can also use the exclude function. So maybe you want to exclude people who have been to your site in 15 days, but you do want people who have been to your site in the past 30 days. So you're only getting people in that latter half of the 30. You're going to go in and you're going to set your daily budget. And the important thing on this tool, which is the reach, again, the reach campaign strategy, when it says optimize for ad delivery, reach, you're going to set a frequency cap. The frequency cap means that for this specific ad set, you are only going to show people these ads a certain amount of times. So we all have, I'm sure, been in a scenario. For me, it's for MeUndies. Like, I've never even been to their website, but I literally just get their ads constantly. And it's probably because I keep clicking on their ads because they're kind of cool looking. But you know, I click like see more, and that's a pixel they have set up. They have an engagement pixel. So I can't fault their advertisers because they're doing a good job. But I'm sure you all have also been in scenarios where you've been on Facebook or you've been on Instagram and you're seeing an ad for the exact same thing over and over and over again in your feed. And it doesn't matter how relevant the ad is because it's absolutely driving you bonkers, and you're going to unfollow the page and maybe report the ad because of it. You don't want to be doing that to the people that you are trying to reach. So set a frequency cap, which means that for each individual person, they're only going to be served this ad one time every however many days. That might be 5 days, might be 7, might be 2 weeks. It's up to you. And again, set a daily budget for this. I recommend setting it at about $2 a day. You can set it, to run in perpetuity forever and ever and ever. But you can also set it to run on a specific schedule if, like me, you're running ads on a monthly basis. I typically do things like September campaign, August campaign, October campaign, and then do ad sets within there. Delivery type, again, keep that as standard. But the really important thing here, if you're going to run these remarketing campaigns, is this frequency cap. That's 1 impression every however many days. And maybe it's 3 impressions. Maybe you don't care if people see the ads that you're showing them 3 times in a week. But make sure that you aren't giving your audience advertising exhaustion. Because just like we know that our students get over inundated with text messages and physical mail and email, we also don't want to be giving them tons and tons of digital ads because they're just going to become numb to them. These are all the resources that I mentioned. These should all be clickable if you get the PDF sent out. But again, you can always just type in any of these bit.lys into your URL. They're all case sensitive, so make sure you capitalize the things that need to be capitalized. And I saw a whole bunch of things come over in the side chat. So I'm gonna pop over here. These are lots of people wanting to do an ads. All right, awesome. Okay, none of these questions are for me. They're all for Cassandra. So if you have any other questions about this, again, I want to be mindful of all of your time since you did just sign up to 3 p.m. Eastern. Do you have any other questions about the way that you can use the Facebook Pixel or how you can run passive ads with them? Again, a lot of these instructions are going to be sent out as part of the webinar summary. Thank you, Jonathan. I super appreciate it.
Awesome. Yeah, I have to agree. This has been fantastic. I've learned so much.
Great, I'm glad. Nick had a really fantastic and complicated question. That is, what legalities have you encountered when dealing with state institutions capturing data from users, particularly children? There really have not been any issues that I've encountered with it outside of regular privacy concerns. So because children are allowed to use Facebook if they're over a certain age, then the main thing is that you're letting people know that there are tracking cookies on your website. Again, that's really important for GDPR if you do have people on your website who are from Europe. But also just because it's something that people kind of expect now. And you don't necessarily need to say something like, hello, I have tracking cookies on my website and I'm using it to track every single thing that you do. Like, maybe don't do that. But say, we're using cookies to make sure that you have a better website experience, or we're using cookies to make sure that we're giving you relevant information. Something that reminds users that it's for them, because studies have shown that people are interested in that. But there isn't really like a specific age thing. If you look into Facebook Ads Manager, you can see that you're able to advertise to people as young as 13, and there is no difference for that as far as being in a state institution. There are no FERPA considerations to be aware of. All of that information is being provided separate from that. And it's not like you have the individualized data where there might be a privacy concern, right? Like, you're not going to have Jane Smith's personal home address from Facebook unless Jane Smith decides to give you their personal home address from Facebook because they filled out a form. You're not going to be able to have that disaggregated data. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Hannah. All right, Kendall says, any recommendations for learning more about this, certificates or anything like that? I'm glad that it has been an insightful experience for you. So Kendall, there are a couple of links that I have on here. The Facebook Blueprint courses are a really easy and free thing to do if you don't want the official certification certificate. That's words. But you can do it for free if you just want to audit the courses. But if you want a certificate, there's a relatively small, I think it's a $300 fee. And you can do those. They are definitely all on your own time, and they help you learn a lot more. The other thing that I recommend is if there's somebody in your office who does Facebook advertising, asking if they'd be willing to mentor you for it. I learned everything I did because I worked with somebody who had way more advertising experience, and she basically taught me everything she knew in a couple of months, and then I got to learn more because I left the industry and started doing something else. So definitely, that trial by doing is really important, but the Facebook Blueprint is also incredibly important. And I think I saw somebody else mention the Google Analytics certificate. You can do that. I think the hard thing with a lot of certificates is that you never know what information you already have. So if you do have a baseline, then just be mindful of how you're spending your time on things. Like, jump into the advanced course if the advanced course makes sense. But if you've never touched Facebook ads before and you don't do advertising in your role at all, then start with the beginner course. Do what's going to be most useful to you, but don't feel like you have to start at that certificate's point A. And Nick, for a lot of institutions, it is. Like I said, every school has their own privacy concerns, but that's not, for most institutions, it really isn't anything you have to be worried about. It's just information that's out in the world.
Awesome. Thank you everybody who
Awesome.
showed up, and thank you to Cassandra for lending your expertise today. This has been absolutely fantastic. For those of you that attended, I'm going to post some things up on the event side on Facebook to let you know how you like this platform. This is the first one of the webinars that we've run on Demio. We've done some Zoom, we've done some Google Live, some YouTube ones. So I'd like to know how you guys thought the platform was, signing up for it, all of that. Just let you know, for everybody who registered, you will get a link for the auto replay. That'll come out. So if you have anybody in your office who maybe wasn't able to attend, but they did reply, let us know. They should be able to get that link as well. And if you have any problems with it, let us know. Definitely come over to the HigherEdSocial group. Invite your friends. We have about 3,300 people worldwide, so it's grown exponentially even in just the last year. We'd love to make sure that we have representation from every college campus out there, because a lot of these trainings are things that we don't normally get on our university campuses, or we might be a team of one. So definitely come on over there. Let us know also what you want to see. A lot of our webinars get signed up for because somebody posted a question and wanted to learn more about it, and it turned into a larger conversation. So if there's something that you want to see, please let us know over in the group. We'll do our best to source an expert and grab them and rope them in for a webinar. We do have a couple of webinars coming up. One on a chat bot is going to be happening. We also do webinars with vendors. So if there's a vendor, for example, you want to know more about Salesforce or Hootsuite, we do have some subject matter experts that we can rope in to kind of do one large demo for the group. So if that's helpful, especially for the smaller teams that maybe don't have the budget but really want to know what's out there, let us know if any of that is of interest to you as well. And that's all that we have for you today. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. This has been amazing. Thank you to Cassandra. Huge thank you to Presence for loaning them, for them to loan us to her today. This is fantastic. So thank you so much, guys. We'll let you go.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good afternoon.
And webinar.